Hi, everyone. Just to introduce myself, I am Polina. I'm the owner of Play to Learn. It's a specialized private practice in Forest Hills.
Hi, my name is Anna, and I'm the owner of Work and Tote, a co-working and playcare space in Rego Park, Queens. So, Polina, in this video, we will figure out exactly what it is that you do, who do you help, what sets your methods apart, and why are there so many hard to pronounce letters after your name? So, let's get that last part out of the way. MACCC SLP TSSLD MSNE CFTP. What does any of that mean?
Is that all of them? That's my alphabet soup for now. So, in short,
Yes.
I have two master's degrees, one in speech language pathology and one in nutrition education. So I've been a speech language pathologist for over a decade, and my nutrition education master's, that's a little bit newer. That's about a year and a half I've had that degree. And the last piece, the CFTP, that's a certification in family trauma. That's something that I get recertified in every year through coursework that I take that's required. And all of those letters together just have guided my practice and have really helped me become the specialist that I am.
What are your areas of expertise?
So to put it in a one, I guess like one phrase, and that's something that a really good friend and colleague of mine, we talked about it recently, and she asked me, when somebody asks you what you do, what is it that you could tell them? And through talking to her, I realized that what I do is that I turn brains on.
One area of the brain is pertaining to speech and language. So please tell me a little bit more about what does speech and language mean?
So there are actually several areas of the brain that specialize in speech and language. Just to clarify a little bit what the difference is, the best example that I could give for somebody who's having difficulties with speech is, a child who has a lisp. I would say even an adult who has a lisp, that would be more of a difficulty with speech. And another example would be somebody who stutters, right? So that those are difficulties with speech, with actual production of sounds.
Mm-hmm.
Language is everything else. So there are so many different areas and components of language, from what we understand to what we say to how we use language in social situations. Language is really how we use language in play, and what language prerequisites children need in order to then become successful readers and successful writers. And language is everywhere in academics, even math.
Mm-hmm.
So everything else is language.
Some struggles with speech and language are normal part of growing up and developmentally appropriate. But are there any red flags that parents should look for in their child as they're starting to formulate sounds and formulate their first words?
Every child is going to be different, and that's why the approach that I take is very individualized. But with that said, there are milestones that we expect children to reach, and we do expect first words around their first birthdays. We expect children to start putting words together into phrases by their second birthdays. And that's why language is actually so much more complex and intricate. There are so many different areas that we look at, and this is where an evaluation comes in. where
So
a
what
specialist
are
can take a look at all the areas
Mhm.
that encompass speech and language.
So what is the average age of your client who comes in for speech and language therapy?
So for language, let's do for language therapy.
Mhm.
My youngest is about 18 months.
So Polina, if a parent has a concern, their child is not making certain bubble noises or not putting words together, do they need a referral to come to you, or can they just pick up a phone or reach you through your website for an evaluation?
Of course, I mean, that's the beauty of being in private practice is that I am available by phone, by email, through my website. It's exactly what you said. They pick up the phone and they call.
So you would say essentially for speech and language, the earlier is intervention, the better.
I would say so. I would say the earlier the
Mhm.
better. And it's, I will then make the decision in terms of services. And again, it would be my professional recommendation. And then I leave it up to the parent to really decide how they want to move forward based on my recommendations.
Next topic of conversation is nutrition. As a mom of a picky eater, very picky eater, our food journey has been frustrating to say the least. So can you please tell me a little bit more about nutrition therapy?
So one of the specialties again that I have is in feeding therapy and nutrition education. And
Mhm.
I hear that a lot from parents that they've had a difficult food journey with their kids. And it's so interesting because my youngest client for feeding therapy has been 11 months. And this is also one of those areas where the earlier you intervene, again, the better. And with an 11-month-old, for example, we were able to make so much progress because she came to me so early that I discharged her within 3 months. Everybody's food journey and everybody's family food story is going to be different. Um, some children stayed with me for about a year and a half for feeding therapy, and then we were able to go through the process of discharging them. And again, they became definitely very successful eaters and successful in many different areas because the unique part about what I do is I look at the entire mealtime environment and the mealtime routine,
Mhm.
and just so that people understand that it's not feeding is not just you come to the table, you sit and you eat. There are so many different steps that are involved, and there are just many different areas that a specialist would look at.
You keep mentioning like different areas. Can you just give me a few examples of what those areas are?
Sure. So some of my kids have food sensitivities. They have sensitivities to texture. They have sensitivities to smell. Even just the sight of certain foods can. I've had kids who their gag reflex is triggered just because they see a new food at the table, and
Mhm.
that would be on the more severe end. Um,
Mhm.
so I've worked with those clients as well, and it's the methodology and obviously like my knowledge base, that's what stays the same, and the approach is generally the same because it's a craft that I've honed into. um, and then everybody's progress is going to be very specific to the individual child and the family. That's where the differences are.
Speaking even of younger kids, when do you know there's a problem?
You would know as early as difficulties with breastfeeding.
With kids, when you do nutrition therapy, it's not just conversation based. From what I understand, you actually have them cook food, you have them help you with meal prep. You set up a whole meal for the family. Is that correct?
Yes, I feed my clients. Something that I also let parents know, that when you come in for feeding therapy, be prepared to eat. And like you said, even my youngest who come in, of course, I'm not going to give a knife to an 11-month-old, but I have child-safe knives. And if a child is able to participate in that part, they participate in that part of the prep where they're cutting foods. If they're not yet able to, then they're washing. And they are 100% a participant in some part of the mealtime process, from the prep to setting up the table to even serving foods. So there's everybody's involved in some way.
This last part goes directly into my next question. So right now, as we're in quarantine, are there anything like that parents can implement with their kids at home?
So again, it's the child can participate to their best abilities. The younger they are, in terms of involving them in just being in the kitchen, is great, because like I mentioned, there are sensitivities to sight and to smell too that kids have, and that's something that develops at a young age. So the best things that parents could do would be to involve their kids as much as possible. Again, it's going to differ for each family, especially at this time. So it's not like you should feel that you want your kids to make every single meal with you, because we know that that's really out of the realm of possibility. But again, as much as you can without putting additional stress on yourself and your family, have your child involved in the preparation part, and setting the table and serving the foods. So as much contact as the child can have, the better.
So right now we're going to move into the next topic of conversation. It's a very sensitive topic to many parents, and so it's challenging behaviors. Tell me a little bit more about play therapy and about what are challenging behaviors.
Again, very individualized, and the essence of it comes back to one of the first questions that you asked me about the brain. Right? So something that we're actually going to touch upon in the webinar that we're providing is, and to explain to parents where these behaviors come from, and why all of a sudden seems to be a surge in tantrums and meltdowns, just in the way that children are responding. And it really comes down to the way that our brains respond to stress, and the way that our brains respond to danger, whether that danger is real or that danger is seemingly not real, but our brain still perceives that danger as being real.
So in a nutshell, play therapy addresses any kind of behavior that raises concerns pertaining to how kids interact with their peers, or how they're basically handling stress, or any kind of problem solving, anything pertaining to their behavior, right?
Yes, and you mentioned something really important in terms of problem solving. Problem solving is also another developmental milestone, actually, and it goes back to, it's all in the language, and this is where my expertise in language comes in. I could rephrase one sentence by switching just one word out, and the meaning of the sentence changes completely. And I've had parents ask me, but I say the same thing as you do. Like, how come the response is different? So we even look at that. Are you saying the same thing as I'm saying? Because there's one word actually in my sentence that's different, and that one word can change everything.
So tell me a little bit more about play therapy experience.
Definitely, it's very hands-on, and there are aspects that I look for when it comes to the way that children play, the way they interact, what they do with objects, how they put objects together. For children who are a little bit older, how they narrate their play. How do they start their play? Do they create a problem within the play? Do they know how to solve it? How do they respond if I create a problem all of a sudden and something doesn't go their way? For older kids, we use a lot of board games also, and there is a very unique method to the way that I play board games with kids. It goes into problem solving, just one of those pieces. Another huge area is executive function skills. That's something that we could spend days on talking about what those are and how they develop and what area of the brain is responsible for it. And I would say one of the earliest developmental milestones to look for that relates to those skills actually is object permanence. And that's like that really fun game that when kids realize that if you cover an object, it's not really gone, and that this is where like peekaboo comes in, and they respond so positively to it. That's a developmental skill.
I know it's very hard in general to admit when your child is struggling, when there's an issue, when you need to involve a professional. Is there anything you want to say to the parents who are on the fence?
I think the best thing that I could say is give me 15 minutes of your time, and I guarantee you that I'll change the way that you think about a situation.
Polina, thank you so much. This has been tremendously informative.
Thank you.
I think this is a great time to tell parents a little bit about the upcoming workshop.
So the upcoming workshop that Anna and I are co-hosting is on Monday, May 4th, and it's at 7:30 p.m. The topic is on challenging behaviors in this unprecedented time, and the workshop is going to delve into areas of the brain, and we're going to keep it very parent friendly, so a little bit of anatomy, but in a way that the parents can get a more of a deeper understanding behind the hows and the whys. Right, so those really are the main questions, right? Why is this occurring? How is this happening? How do I make it better? It's going to be filled with really great information and very simple strategies and techniques that you can carry over at home.
And there will be a Q&A section at the end. You'll be able to send in questions throughout the workshop, and Polina will do her best to get to all the questions at the end of the workshop, just to make sure that everyone is heard and all concerns are addressed. The space is limited because we do want to address every individual, so we do ask that you RSVP. The information is provided on the screen. So if you would like to register, please email us. And we look forward to seeing you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye. Thank you for visiting our YouTube channel. If you like what you saw, please subscribe. And if you have questions for any of our experts, we want to know. Leave a comment or send us an email. Thank you and see you soon. Bye.